The night does not invite you in. It watches. It waits. Somewhere between exhaustion and curiosity, you step closer, not because it's safe, but because the dark feels quieter when shared. History is about to breathe beside you, slowly, patiently, and without apology. Before you drift any deeper, if this quiet helps you feel safe tonight, you're welcome to stay with us. Subscribing softly keeps this place gentle and lets these nights continue. Now, rest. It is raining. Not the polite kind of rain you see through cafe windows, but the cold, persistent, medieval kind that soaks through wool, leather, and optimism alike. The wind pushes it sideways, slipping under cloaks and into boots that were never meant to be waterproof. Somewhere down a narrow street, barely wide enough for 2 carts to pass without arguing about it, a single tavern sign creaks on rusted chains. The sound is slow, rhythmic, and faintly accusatory, as if it already knows you are about to make a questionable decision. You pause there, just long enough for the rain to remind you that standing still is a luxury. The street smells of wet earth, old stone, and something faintly organic you choose not to identify. Light leaks from beneath a wooden door ahead, warm, trembling, and deeply misleading. It promises shelter. It promises noise. It promises that for a little while the night will not be entirely yours to endure alone. The sign sways again. You step forward, and without realizing it, you cross not just a threshold of wood and iron, but a thin, fragile line between what history looks like and what it actually felt like. This is the moment films love, the dramatic entrance, the warm glow, the comforting noise of laughter and clinking mugs. In your head, you might still be expecting something like that. Long tables, friendly faces, a welcoming fire. A place where stories are told and memories are made. You are about to be disappointed because the first thing that hits you is not the sound. It is not the sight. It is the smell. And no, it is not beer. It is a thick, layered scent, one that doesn't announce itself politely but settles into your lungs without asking. Stale sweat, wet wool, old smoke, something sour, something vaguely sweet, something unmistakably organic and deeply human. It is the smell of bodies that work hard, wash rarely, and drink often. It is the smell of food that has seen better days, floors that have never truly been clean, and air that has been trapped inside these walls for longer than anyone can remember. If you were hoping for the comforting aroma of malt and hops, you are in the wrong century. The door closes behind you with a heavy thud, and just like that, the outside world disappears. The rain, the wind, the cold night air are replaced by something warmer, darker, and far less forgiving. The tavern is lit by oil lamps and candles, their flames trembling every time someone moves too quickly. Shadows stretch and shrink along the walls, making the room feel alive in a way that is slightly unsettling, like it is watching you settle in. This is not a cozy place. It is not designed to be. Comfort, in the modern sense, is a luxury medieval taverns have no interest in providing. The benches are hard, the tables are rough, scarred with knife marks and old burns. The floor is uneven, sticky in places, and quietly suspicious everywhere else. You learn quickly not to look too closely at it. People fill the room, but they do not welcome you with smiles. They barely look up at all. Conversations continue uninterrupted. Laughter erupts suddenly and dies just as fast. Somewhere, someone coughs. In a way that suggests they have been doing that for years. A dog sleeps under a table, or perhaps it is something else. You decide not to investigate. This is important to understand. Medieval taverns are not built for atmosphere. They are built for function. They exist to serve drink, shelter, and noise. Romance is something historians add centuries later, usually from a safe distance, and with a glass of clean water nearby. The fire crackles in the hearth, but it does little to clear the air. Smoke clings to the ceiling, darkening the beams until they look almost black. Over time, everything here becomes the same muted shade of brown and gray. Wood, cloth, skin, even faces seem to blend together in the dim light. You realize that color is a privilege, and this place has chosen practicality instead. You stand there for a moment, letting your eyes adjust, your nose surrender, your expectations quietly retreat. This is not a medieval tavern as imagined. This is a medieval tavern as lived. And here is the uncomfortable truth that rarely makes it into documentaries with sweeping music. Taverns were not meant to be pleasant. They were meant to be necessary. In a world where homes are small, cold, and crowded, the tavern is a shared space, a place to escape the dark, even if only into a different kind of darkness, a place where warmth exists, even if it comes with strings attached, a place where you can sit, drink something safer than water, and pretend for a few hours that life is not as fragile as it actually is. If you were hoping for a medieval version of a warm, inviting bar with friendly banter and charming background music, you are going to have a long night. This is not a place designed to make you feel special. It does not care who you are. It has seen people like you before, hundreds of them, thousands. Some arrived hopeful, some desperate, some never left. The walls remember, even if no one else does. And yet, despite all of this, or perhaps because of it, there is something magnetic about the room. The low murmur of voices blends into a constant hum, like the tavern itself is breathing. Stories are being told at every table, some loudly, some in whispers. Lies, truths, exaggerations, confessions. All of them sound the same after enough ale. You realize that this place is not trying to impress you. It is simply existing. It has survived plagues, wars, fires, and generations of people who came here looking for relief in a wooden mug. It does not need your approval. The irony, of course, is that centuries later, we will romanticize this exact moment. We will paint it, write about it, recreate it with polished wood and carefully curated authenticity. We will strip away the smell, the discomfort, the quiet danger, and keep only the idea of togetherness. But standing here in this flickering light, with your boots slowly sticking to the floor, the truth is impossible to ignore. If you were hoping for a cozy bar experience, you are in the wrong place. If you were hoping for a cozy bar experience, you are in the wrong century. And the tavern, ancient and indifferent, seems to agree. Who was allowed inside and who should have stayed out if they valued their life. Once you step fully into the tavern, something subtle but important happens. You stop being a visitor and start being an object of quiet evaluation. Not the obvious kind. No one points. No one stares for too long, but you can feel it. The brief pauses in conversation. The way eyes lift, just enough to register your presence, then return to their mugs, as if nothing happened. This is not curiosity. It is assessment. Medieval taverns were not private clubs. But they were not neutral spaces either. They were crossroads, pressure points, places where lives overlapped, not because people wanted to meet, but because they had nowhere else to go. In a society defined by rigid hierarchy, the tavern was one of the few places where those lines blurred, not erased, just smudged. At one table, a group of farmers sits hunched over wooden mugs, hands cracked and swollen from years of labor. Their clothes are stained with earth and sweat, and their laughter is loud, slightly forced, as if volume itself might scare away tomorrow's worries. These are men and women who have worked since dawn and will do so again, regardless of how much they drink tonight. For them, the tavern is not entertainment. It is endurance. Nearby, leaning back with practiced ease, a mercenary occupies far more space than he needs. His armor is scratched, mismatched, and unmistakably worn by someone who expects trouble and occasionally invites it. A sword rests against the bench within easy reach. He laughs less often than the farmers, but when he does, it is sharper. He is here for drink, yes, but also for information, for work, for rumors that might keep him alive a little longer. Taverns are good at that. They are terrible at asking questions. In a darker corner, partially hidden by smoke and shadow, sits a man in plain robes, a monk perhaps, or a priest, or someone who looks enough like one to benefit from the assumption. He drinks quietly, eyes downcast, as if hoping no one notices the contradiction of a holy man in a place like this. The truth, of course, is simpler. Clergy drank, often, sometimes more than anyone else. The tavern does not judge, it just pours. And then there are others, the ones who do not fit neatly into any category, the man with the nervous glance who flinches every time the door opens, the woman who keeps her back to the wall and her purse close, the stranger whose name no one asks for because asking might invite answers they would rather avoid. Yes, fugitives came here too, not because taverns were safe, but because they were anonymous in the right way. In a crowd full of rough faces and forgettable stories, it was easier to disappear. As long as you paid, kept your head down, and didn't attract attention, the tavern was willing to pretend you belonged, for a few hours at least. This is the strange democracy of the medieval tavern. Not equality exactly, but proximity. Everyone is close enough to hear each other breathe. Social classes sit inches apart, separated less by walls and more by unspoken rules. You do not sit where you want. You sit where you are allowed. And those rules matter. Some people, despite appearances, do not belong here at all. Take women, for example. Contrary to modern fantasy, taverns were not universally welcoming spaces for them. Some women were absolutely allowed inside. Tavern keepers' wives, serving women, widows, running their own establishments. In some cases, they were the ones truly in control. But respectable women, especially alone, entered at their own risk. A tavern was a public space, and public spaces were dangerous for those without protection. If a woman sat alone at a table, it sent a message, whether she intended it or not. The message might be misunderstood, or worse, understood perfectly. Context mattered. Reputation mattered. And reputation once damaged did not come back easily. Still, women were here, always, working, watching, listening, sometimes selling more than ale, sometimes simply surviving. The tavern was not moral or immoral, it was practical. It responded to demand. And overseeing all of this, quietly but unmistakably, was the most important figure in the room. The tavern keeper. He, or quite often she, did not wear armor, did not carry a sword openly, did not raise their voice unless absolutely necessary. And yet their authority was unquestioned. The tavern keeper decided who was served, who was ignored, and who was told, politely or not, to leave. This power did not come from kindness. It came from knowledge. The tavern keeper knew everyone, who owed money, who started fights when drunk, who was dangerous, and who was merely loud. They knew which mercenary had killed before, which farmer would cry after his third mug, which priest pretended not to drink as much as he did. They heard everything, and they remembered. In many towns, there was no police force, as we understand it. Law existed, yes, but enforcement was inconsistent and often slow. Justice, when it arrived, tended to arrive late and angry. In the meantime, order was maintained by people like this. People with strong arms, loyal staff, and an unspoken agreement with the local authorities. If trouble started, the tavern keeper decided how it ended. This is why most fights did not begin with shouting. They began with looks, with silence, with a sudden awareness that you might have misjudged the room, because once the tavern keeper stepped in, things moved quickly, and not always gently. There is a dry kind of humor in this if you think about it long enough. In a place full of weapons, criminals, and desperation, the true authority wears an apron and controls the alcohol supply. No badge, no title, just leverage. Police? No. The tavern keeper is the law. And this understanding shapes the atmosphere in ways you can feel but not quite name. Conversations avoid certain topics. Insults are carefully measured. Even drunk men know when to stop pushing. Survival sharpens social awareness. As you stand there absorbing this silent hierarchy, you realize something unsettling. The tavern does not welcome everyone equally, but it accepts almost everyone conditionally. Pay, behave. Do not disrupt the fragile balance. Break those rules, and the room will turn on you faster than you expect. This is not cruelty. It is efficiency. Because in a world without safety nets, places like this are all that stand between order and chaos. And they walk that line every night, balancing ale, fear, and human nature with remarkable consistency. You are still standing near the door. No one has challenged you. That is a good sign. It means you are not interesting enough to be dangerous yet. Give it time. The tavern has a way of changing that. Medieval beer. Drinking to survive, not to chill. Eventually, someone notices you standing there too long, not out of kindness, but because an unmoving person in a medieval tavern is either lost, suspicious, or about to cause a problem. A chipped wooden mug appears in front of you, placed down with a dull thud that feels less like an offer and more like a conclusion. This is what you are here for. This is what everyone is here for. Beer, not the kind you imagine, not golden, sparkling, or proudly advertised with clever names. Medieval beer does not care about your expectations. It exists for one reason and one reason only: survival. In this world, nearly everyone drinks beer. Farmers, laborers, soldiers, monks, women, old men, teenagers, children. Yes, children. Not because medieval parents were reckless, but because they were practical. Clean water is rare, unreliable, and often dangerous. Streams carry waste. Wells are easily contaminated. Rivers serve too many purposes to be trusted with your life. Water, in theory, is free. In practice, it can kill you. Beer, on the other hand, is predictable. The brewing process involves boiling, fermentation, and time. Three things that quietly eliminate many of the dangers lurking in untreated water. You may not understand germ theory, but you understand patterns. People who drink beer live longer. People who rely on water sometimes don't. The conclusion does not require science, only memory. So beer becomes a daily necessity, not a luxury, not an indulgence, a staple, something you consume the way you consume bread, often alongside bread, sometimes instead of it. This is why the tavern matters so much. It is not just a place to drink, it is a place to stay alive. But before you lift that mug, it helps to understand what you are actually holding. Medieval beer is not standardized. There are no recipes printed on labels, no quality control beyond whether people return tomorrow. Every batch is different. Every tavern has its own version, influenced by local grain, available herbs, water quality, and the brewer's experience or lack thereof. Some beer is thin and weak, barely more than fermented grain water. This is small beer. It contains little alcohol, enough to be safe, not enough to make you forget your own name. Children drink this. Workers drink it throughout the day. It hydrates without incapacitating. Think of it less as beer and more as liquid bread with opinions. Other beer is stronger, thicker, darker. This is the kind reserved for evenings, for celebration, for forgetting. It sits heavier in the stomach and foggier in the mind. After a few mugs, conversations slow, tempers shorten, and courage grows in all the wrong directions. And then there is the third category, the one no one talks about openly. The suspicious beer. This is the beer that smells slightly off, or tastes unexpected, sour perhaps, or smoky, or metallic, sometimes sweet in a way that feels like a warning. No one wastes it. Waste is a luxury. You drink it anyway. You tell yourself, it is fine. You tell yourself, it is supposed to taste like that. You tell yourself many things. Sometimes you are right, sometimes you regret it deeply. The flavor of medieval beer is difficult to describe because it does not aim for pleasure, it aims for function. Without modern hops, brewers rely on a mixture of herbs known as gruit. What goes into it depends on what grows nearby: yarrow, heather, juniper, rosemary. Things that smell good, taste sharp, and occasionally have side effects no one fully understands. The result is beer that can be bitter, herbal, earthy, or aggressively strange. One sip might remind you of wet grass, another of smoke, another of something you once smelled near a fire and decided to walk away from quickly. Consistency is not a goal. Drinkability is. You take a sip. It is warm, not unpleasantly so, just alive. Cold storage is rare, ice non-existent. Beer is stored in barrels exposed to air, absorbing the character of the wood, the room, and everything else that lives here. It tastes old and young at the same time. There is bitterness, yes, but also a sharp sourness that catches you off guard. It lingers. You swallow. Around you, no one reacts, no one winces, no one compliments the brew. They drink with the calm efficiency of people who have done this their entire lives. You realize the taste is relative. What would shock you is normal to them. What you consider flawed, they consider familiar. This is not craft beer. This is survival. The irony, of course, is delicious in its own way. Centuries from now, people will pay high prices for drinks described as rustic, wild fermented, and historically inspired. They will search for notes of smoke, sourness, and earthiness. They will swirl glasses and discuss mouthfeel. Medieval people would find this hilarious. You do not drink beer here to explore flavor profiles. You drink it because it is safer than water and because the day has been long. You drink it because everyone else is drinking it, and not drinking would make you suspicious. You drink it because stopping would require thinking, and thinking is exhausting. Even the monks know this, especially the monks. Monasteries are some of the best brewers in medieval Europe. Not because they love excess, but because they love routine. Brewing is predictable. It fills time, it feeds people, it fits neatly into a life structured around prayer and work. Some monasteries produce beer stronger than anything you will find in this tavern. Others produce vast quantities of small beer, enough to sustain entire communities. There is a quiet joke buried here. A holy life devoted to moderation, supported by alcohol, but no one laughs out loud. As you drink, you notice how the tavern changes. Voices grow louder, laughter becomes less controlled, movements lose precision, the edges of the room soften just slightly. Beer does not make people happy here. It makes them bearable. It takes the sharpest parts of life and rounds them off, even if only temporarily. This is why beer is everywhere, why it flows freely, why it is tolerated, encouraged, and sometimes required. A sober medieval society would be unbearable. A drunk one is at least manageable. You glance into the bottom of your mug. The liquid is cloudy, sediment clings to the sides. This is normal. Filtering is minimal. What you see is grain, yeast, history. You drink it anyway. Someone nearby raises their mug in a half-hearted toast. Not to you exactly. To the moment. To the shared understanding that tomorrow will come regardless. And tonight is all that stands between now and then. You raise yours in return. If you are expecting refreshment, you are still misunderstanding the point. This is not about enjoyment. This is about endurance. You take another sip. You call this craft beer. They call it staying alive. Tavern food, when hunger decides your morals. After the beer settles in your stomach, it does something dangerous. It reminds you that you are hungry, not the casual kind of hunger that politely suggests a snack, but the deep, practical hunger of a world where meals are uncertain and tomorrow's food has not yet been promised. In the medieval tavern, hunger is not an inconvenience. It is a condition. You look around for a menu. There isn't one. There never is. The closest thing to a menu is a shrug, followed by a vague gesture toward the back of the room. Tavern food is simple in concept and brutal in execution. You eat what exists, you eat what is available, you eat what has not yet spoiled badly enough to be considered dangerous by people with very flexible definitions of danger. Today's special is whatever survived the night. This is not exaggeration. Medieval taverns do not plan meals the way modern kitchens do. There is no weekly ordering, no refrigeration, no guarantees. Food arrives when it arrives. Animals are slaughtered when they must be. Vegetables appear when the season allows it. Preservation is an ongoing battle against time, insects, mold, and reality itself. So, the menu is decided daily, sometimes hourly. Meat is the centerpiece, at least in theory. In practice, meat is a gamble. You are rarely told what animal it came from, and asking too many questions is considered impolite. Beef, pork, mutton, maybe, or something smaller, something that once ran fast, something that no longer does. The meat is cooked thoroughly, not out of culinary tradition, but out of fear. Undercooked meat is an invitation to illness, and illness in this world is not a temporary setback. It is a negotiation with death. So the meat is boiled, stewed, roasted, until its original texture becomes a memory. Chewing is work. Swallowing is an accomplishment. If the meat tastes odd, no one comments. Taste is secondary. Calories matter more. Protein matters more. Survival matters more. You chew slowly, carefully, and remind yourself that at least it is warm. Sometimes, if you are lucky, the meat is fresh. Other times, it has been preserved through salting, smoking, or drying. Each method leaves its mark. Salted meat pulls moisture from your mouth. Smoked meat tastes like the inside of the tavern smells. Dried meat fights back. And then there are the days when meat appears that should not have. Animals die unexpectedly. Cows break legs, pigs fall ill, chickens stop moving for reasons no one wants to investigate too deeply. In a modern world, these are problems. In the medieval tavern, they are opportunities. Waste is unacceptable. Everything edible remains edible until proven otherwise. And sometimes even after that. You eat it anyway. Bread arrives next, thumped onto the table like an obligation. It is dense, heavy, often stale. Bread is baked in large batches and meant to last. Fresh bread is a luxury reserved for special days. Most of what you are given is days old, sometimes older. It cracks instead of tears. It scratches the inside of your mouth if you are not careful. This is not a flaw. This is a feature. Hard bread lasts longer. It fills the stomach. It can be dipped into stew or beer to soften it, a trick everyone learns early. Bread is not meant to be enjoyed. It is meant to endure, much like the people eating it. You break off a piece and notice how quiet the room becomes when food arrives. Conversation does not stop, but it slows. Eating here is serious business. You do not rush. You do not complain. Complaining implies choice. Vegetables, when they appear, are humble. Onions, turnips, cabbage, things that grow easily and survive neglect. They are boiled until soft, their flavors blending into something vaguely recognizable. Fresh greens are rare. Herbs are more common, not for taste, but for necessity. Which brings us to the spices. Medieval food is often imagined as bland. This is only partially true. What it lacks in refinement, it compensates for in aggression. Spices are used generously, not to enhance flavor, but to hide it. Pepper, mustard, garlic, vinegar, and herbs are added to mask the taste of meat that has begun to question its own mortality. This is not subtle cooking. This is defensive cooking. A heavily spiced stew is not a sign of wealth or sophistication. It is a warning sign that the ingredients needed help. And yet people grow to like it, or perhaps they grow to accept it. The line between preference and necessity blurs over time. You take a bite and feel the sharpness hit your tongue. Vinegar cuts through the richness. Garlic lingers. Pepper burns just enough to distract you from asking questions. It works. You keep eating. Around you, others do the same. No one pushes their bowl away in disgust. No one sends food back. There is no sending food back. There is only eating or going hungry, and hunger is not romantic. There is a dark humor here if you listen closely, a shared understanding that this meal may not be good, but it is better than nothing. Better than yesterday, perhaps. Better than tomorrow might be. Someone mutters a joke about the stew fighting back. Another replies that at least it's already dead. Laughter follows. Short, dry, honest. Not bad, someone says, and everyone understands what they mean. It is not that the food is good. It is that you are alive to comment on it. This is the quiet philosophy of tavern food. Morality bends when hunger tightens its grip. Standards shift. Expectations lower. What matters is not taste, but outcome. Did you eat? Are you still standing? Will you wake up tomorrow? If the answer is yes, the meal was a success. You scrape the bowl clean with a piece of bread, soaking up every last drop. This is not politeness. This is efficiency. Calories are precious. Leaving food behind is unthinkable. As you finish, the tavern noise swells again. Eating has grounded everyone, anchored them briefly in the present. Now the beer resumes its work. The food settles heavy in your stomach, warm and reassuring in its own rough way. You realize something uncomfortable. Despite everything, you are grateful. Not because the food was enjoyable, but because it existed at all. In this place, that is enough. You lean back slightly, careful not to tip the bench, and let the room return to its low, constant hum. The tavern has fed you. Not kindly, not generously, but sufficiently. And in a world like this, that counts as mercy. After all, it's not bad food. You're just alive enough to complain. Sound, smell, and the thing they called atmosphere. By now the tavern has settled into its true rhythm. Not the polite version you might notice at first, but the deeper one, the constant pulse that never really stops. If you close your eyes for a moment, you can hear it breathing. Not metaphorically, almost literally. Sound comes first. It layers itself carefully, one noise resting on top of another, until individual voices blur into something communal. Laughter breaks out suddenly, sharp and explosive, then dissolves into coughing fits or slurred sentences that wander nowhere in particular. Arguments flare without warning, sparked by misunderstandings, old grudges, or the simple fact that beer removes the brakes from human thought. Most of them fade just as quickly, burned out before they reach anything worth remembering. Every so often there is the unmistakable sound of metal touching metal, a knife dropped, a mug slammed down too hard, a sword hilt shifting against a bench as someone adjusts their weight. These sounds do not stop the room. They merely register. A collective awareness passes through the crowd, subtle and brief before conversation resumes. This is important. Silence here would mean danger. The tavern survives on noise. It needs it. Noise means people are still talking, still drinking, still pretending that tonight will end normally. Quiet would invite questions no one wants answered. Beneath the voices, the building itself contributes. Wood creaks as bodies shift. Floorboards groan under uneven weight. The fire crackles, sending sparks upward that vanish into the smoke-darkened beams. Somewhere water drips, slowly and persistently, though no one remembers why or where it began. The air vibrates with it all, thick with sound and movement. You feel it in your chest more than your ears. And then there is the smell. You noticed it when you walked in, of course. Everyone does. But smell in a medieval tavern is not static. It evolves. It deepens. It learns you, and you learn it in return. There is the smell of people first and foremost, human bodies packed close together, wrapped in layers meant to keep out cold, not release heat. Sweat soaked into wool and linen, reactivated by warmth and motion. The scent is not necessarily offensive by the standards of the time. It is familiar, expected, almost comforting, in a way that would horrify you later if you thought about it too much. Smoke weaves through everything. It clings to hair, skin, clothing, food. The fire is rarely clean. It burns whatever is available. Wood, peat. Sometimes things that should not be burned indoors at all. The smoke does not rise and vanish. It lingers, forming a low ceiling that presses down on the room, trapping heat and scent together in a heavy embrace. Underneath that, quieter but unmistakable, is the smell of illness. You do not know it by name, but you recognize it instinctively. The faint sourness of infection, the sweet, wrong note of a body fighting something it may not win against. In a world without antibiotics, sickness does not hide. It sits openly at the table, coughing into its sleeve, sipping beer like everyone else. No one recoils, no one leaves. Leaving would mean acknowledging how fragile everything really is. And then there is the problem no one wants to discuss directly. There is no proper toilet. There are arrangements, of course. Buckets, pits, corners that everyone agrees not to look at too closely. Sometimes there is a small outbuilding behind the tavern, shared by everyone and cleaned by no one. Sometimes there is nothing at all. The concept of privacy is flexible. The concept of sanitation even more so. Liquids spill where they fall. Solids are dealt with later. Or not. The smell reflects this reality honestly. It does not apologize. It simply exists, another layer in an already complicated sensory experience. Over time, your nose gives up, trying to separate it all. It becomes background. It becomes atmosphere. This is the strange thing about taverns. They overwhelm you at first, then slowly convince you that this is normal, that this is how the world smells, sounds, and feels. Adaptation is not a choice. It is a requirement. As the hours pass, the tavern changes again. Not dramatically, but perceptibly. Beer does its work. Voices grow louder then softer. Jokes repeat themselves. Stories stretch longer each time they are told. Someone begins to sing, badly and without invitation. No one stops them. It is easier to let it happen. You realize that the tavern is not just a building filled with people. It is a living thing. It has moods. It has patterns. It responds to stimuli. When someone laughs loudly, the room swells. When someone shouts in anger, the room tightens. When a mug shatters against the floor, the tavern holds its breath for a moment, then exhales as nothing worse follows. It feeds on alcohol and attention. It digests conflict and boredom alike. It remembers, even if the people inside do not. The walls have absorbed more sound than they will ever release. If you pressed your ear against them, you might imagine you could hear echoes of past nights layered beneath this one. You are not sure if that thought comforts you or unsettles you. Time behaves differently here. Without clocks, without schedules, without any real obligation beyond staying alive, hours stretch and compress unpredictably. It feels late, but late does not mean the same thing it does outside. Night inside a tavern is a separate entity. It does not follow the rules. The fire burns lower, shadows deepen, faces blur at the edges. The air grows warmer, heavier, more intimate in a way that is both inviting and faintly claustrophobic. People lean closer to hear each other, their voices dropping, secrets slipping out more easily than intended. You catch fragments of conversation drifting past you, complaints about taxes, rumors of war, whispers of illness in the next village. A man insisting he once saw something impossible on the road at night. A woman laughing too hard at something that is not funny. All of it matters. None of it does. The tavern absorbs it all without judgment. At some point, you notice that you no longer register the smell consciously. Your ears stop picking out individual sounds. You have crossed a threshold. The tavern has accepted you, not as a guest, but as part of the environment. You are another warm body producing noise and heat. This is where the unsettling feeling settles in. Because this place does not care who you are. It does not remember your name. It will not mourn you if you leave and never return. It will simply continue. Tomorrow night, different faces will fill these benches, and the same smells and sounds will rise again like a ritual. The thought is oddly calming. The tavern has outlived kings, plagues, and wars. It will outlive tonight, it might outlive you. And in that continuity, there is a strange comfort, a reminder that individual lives are small, but patterns endure. You sit quietly, letting the atmosphere wash over you. The laughter, the arguments, the scrape of metal, the smoke, the human scent, the low hum of existence pressed into a single room. It is not pleasant, it is not safe, it is not meant to be, but it is real. And for now, that is enough. The stories told after the third drink. There is a moment in every medieval tavern night when the room subtly changes its purpose. It usually happens after the third drink, not the first, which warms, not the second, which loosens, but the third, which convinces people that what they are about to say is a good idea. You can feel it when it happens. Voices drop, not because people are becoming quieter, but because they are becoming serious. Laughter thins out, replaced by intent. People lean closer together, elbows on tables, mugs forgotten long enough for words to take center stage. This is when the tavern stops being just a place to eat and drink and becomes something else entirely. A network. In a medieval world, information is not printed, posted, or fact-checked. It moves the way disease does, through proximity, breath, and repetition. And the tavern is the perfect environment for it to spread. Rumors are the most common currency here, not because people are malicious, but because certainty is rare. Someone heard something from a cousin who heard it from a traveler who claims he saw it himself. A lord is raising taxes. A bridge collapsed. A war is coming. A plague has reached the next town. Each telling adds detail, urgency, and confidence. Truth becomes optional. Legends thrive in this atmosphere. Tales of creatures in the woods, of cursed roads, of miracles witnessed by someone who knows someone who would never lie. After enough beer, skepticism feels rude. Besides, believing costs nothing. Disbelieving costs attention, and attention is valuable. Tonight. At one table, a man swears he saw a ghost near the old mill. At another, someone insists the king is dead, even though no one can quite explain how or why. Across the room, a farmer claims his neighbor's cow gave birth to something unnatural. Everyone listens. Some nod. Some laugh. No one demands proof. Proof is a modern obsession. In this world, plausibility is enough. And then there are the storytellers. Every tavern has one eventually, sometimes several. They are easy to spot once you know what to look for. They speak louder than necessary, pause for effect, and watch faces carefully as they talk. They have traveled or claim to have. They know things or appear to. Their stories are long, winding, and carefully structured to survive interruptions. Some are professionals, minstrels, performers, people who trade entertainment for food and drink. Others are simply practiced liars with good timing. The line between the two is thin. These storytellers serve a function. They bring the outside world inside. They connect this dim room to distant places most people will never see. Cities, courts, battlefields, strange lands where rules are different. And danger feels exotic instead of immediate. They are tolerated, sometimes encouraged, because they distract, because they give shape to fear, because they make the unknown feel manageable. But not all stories are harmless. News travels through taverns faster than through any official channel. A messenger might pass through once, a rumor will stay. By morning, everyone in town will have heard a version of it. Not the same version. Better ones. This makes taverns powerful, dangerous. A single sentence spoken carelessly can change how people behave. It can start fights, end alliances, mark someone as an enemy without their knowledge. In a room like this, reputation is fragile. Say the wrong thing about the wrong person, and it will not stay between you and your mug. It will move. It will grow legs. By the time it reaches its target, it will no longer resemble what you said, only what people needed it to mean. This is why some conversations happen in whispers, why names are avoided, why certain topics are approached sideways, wrapped in jokes and hypotheticals. Survival here depends not just on strength, but on restraint. The irony is sharp if you look at it long enough. We like to think misinformation is a modern problem, something born of technology, speed, and too many opinions. But sitting here, listening to half-remembered facts and confidently delivered falsehoods, it becomes clear that fake news is not an invention. It is a tradition. The tavern amplifies it. Alcohol lowers defenses. Boredom invites speculation. Fear demands explanation. Together they form a perfect storm. Stories become tools, weapons, comfort blankets, sometimes all three at once. You hear a man claim that a neighboring village was burned to the ground. Someone else insists it was only a fire in a single house. By the end of the night, the story will involve soldiers, betrayal, and divine punishment. Tomorrow people will act on it. This is the unsettling part. Words here have weight, not moral weight, practical weight. They affect decisions. They influence movement. They decide who leaves town early, who stays too long, who trusts whom. A poorly chosen joke can make you a target. A misunderstood comment can follow you for years. Silence, sometimes, is the safest option. You notice that experienced patrons speak less. They listen more. They nod without committing. They let stories wash over them without absorbing too much. They have learned that information is like alcohol. A little warms you. Too much makes you reckless. As the night deepens, stories grow darker. People talk about death more freely, about violence, about things they have seen and things they hope never to see again. The tavern holds these confessions gently, like secrets it has heard 1,000 times before. Someone tells a story that ends badly. There is a pause afterward, longer than usual. The fire crackles. A mug is refilled. Life continues. This is how the tavern teaches you. Not with lessons, but with examples. You learn what can be said, what should not, who reacts to which words. It is a social education, written in raised eyebrows and sudden silences. You realize that the tavern is not just where stories are told. It is where reality is negotiated. By the time the third drink empties, you understand something essential. In this room, information is never neutral. Every word is a small gamble. Most people lose without realizing they ever played. You take another sip, smaller this time. Listening feels safer than speaking. The tavern, full of voices and half-truths, seems to approve. Violence in the tavern, when daggers speak before reason. Violence in a medieval tavern does not announce itself loudly. It does not arrive with a dramatic pause or a clear beginning. Most of the time it slips in quietly, already halfway through the door, before anyone realizes it has arrived. By now you can feel the tension living under the noise. It has always been there, woven into the laughter, the stories, the clatter of mugs. Alcohol has loosened tongues and stiffened pride. Words have grown sharper. Jokes have lost their humor. Someone, somewhere, is about to take something personally. This is not unusual. Fights are not an exception here. They are a feature, not constant, not inevitable, but expected. Everyone in the room understands this on some level, even if they pretend otherwise. The tavern is a place where people bring their frustrations with them, and frustration, when soaked in beer, looks for an exit. Weapons are never far. You may not see them at first, but they are there. Knives tucked into belts, daggers hidden in boots, short swords leaning against walls close enough to reach without standing. Even tools can become weapons if needed. A mug is heavy, a stool is solid, the fire is open. In a medieval world, being unarmed is irresponsible. This is especially true for soldiers. Some of them are obvious. Men with scars that do not need explanation. Posture that does not soften even when drunk. They sit with their backs protected, their awareness never fully gone. Others blend in more easily. Veterans without banners or uniforms. Fighters between contracts. Men trained for violence, now waiting for the next chance to use it or forget it. Unemployed soldiers are dangerous creatures. They are skilled, bored, and often unpaid. They drink because there is little else to do. They fight because fighting is familiar, and familiarity feels like control. A tavern gives them all the necessary ingredients: alcohol, witnesses, and a reason, however small. Most fights start stupidly. A spilled drink, a careless shoulder, a comment misunderstood or understood too well, someone laughs when they shouldn't, someone stares too long, pride swells, words escalate, the room senses it before it happens. Conversations nearby slow. People shift their benches slightly, creating space without appearing to do so. This is the unwritten law of the tavern. When violence is coming, you make room for it. No one rushes to stop it immediately. That would be foolish. You wait, you watch, you assess whether this will remain a shouting match or turn into something else. Raised voices are tolerated, raised weapons are not. When steel appears, the mood changes instantly. There is a sharp intake of breath, collective and involuntary. Sound drops away, replaced by focus. This is the moment where things can still go either way. A hand on an arm, a quiet word from the tavern keeper, a look that says, "This is not worth it." Sometimes that is enough. Other times, it isn't. When a fight breaks out, it is fast and ugly. There is no choreography, no rules beyond survival. Punches land hard and close. Someone goes down. Someone else joins in, not always intentionally. Furniture crashes. Someone screams, then stops. Blood, when it appears, is shocking, not because it is rare, but because it escalates everything. Once blood is spilled, the tavern's patience thins dramatically. This is no longer entertainment. This is a problem. The unwritten laws tighten. You do not kill here unless you are prepared to deal with the consequences. You do not draw weapons lightly. You do not involve bystanders. You do not damage the tavern itself more than necessary. Break these rules, and you will not face one opponent. You will face everyone. This is how order is maintained. Not through morality, but through shared interest. The tavern must survive. Violence is tolerated only as long as it does not threaten the whole. When things go too far, intervention comes swiftly. Staff move with practiced coordination. Regulars step in without being asked. Someone is dragged outside, sometimes conscious, sometimes not. The door slams shut, cutting off the night air and whatever consequences now wait beyond it. Inside, the tavern exhales. The fire crackles. Someone laughs nervously. Another orders another round. Life resumes, slightly altered but intact. You notice how quickly people adapt. This is the unsettling part. Violence here is not shocking enough to stop the evening. It is absorbed, processed, and filed away as part of the experience. Tomorrow it will become a story. Exaggerated, simplified, sanitized. Tonight it is just something that happened. And it could happen again. Because not every night ends in blood, but every night carries the risk. Everyone knows it. Everyone accepts it. Living without that awareness would be far more dangerous. You sit still, careful not to draw attention. You have learned enough by now to understand the signs, the stiffening shoulders, the sudden silence around a table, the way hands drift closer to belts. You understand something else too. The tavern is not violent because people are cruel. It is violent because people are human, tired, frightened, and armed. Remove any one of those elements, and the room changes completely. Remove none, and this is what you get. a place balanced perpetually on the edge. As the night stretches on, tempers cool slightly, exhaustion begins to outweigh aggression. Those most eager for conflict have already found it or been removed. The remaining crowd settles into a wary calm, but the danger never leaves. It sits quietly, waiting for another careless word, another clumsy movement. It is patient. It has all night. You glance around the room one more time. Faces look softer now, blurred by drink and fatigue. Weapons remain close, untouched but present. The tavern hums, alive and alert, like an animal that knows predators are nearby. You remember a thought from earlier, and it feels truer now than ever. Not every night ends with blood, but every night comes close enough to smell it, and the tavern, ancient and indifferent, keeps its doors open anyway. Women, prostitution, and the things no one wanted to write down. As the night deepens, another truth of the tavern becomes harder to ignore, even though it is rarely spoken aloud. Women are here, they always have been, not as decorations, not as background figures, but as participants in a system that pretends not to see them clearly. History often struggles with this part, not because the evidence is absent, but because it makes people uncomfortable. Records become vague, language turns evasive. Chroniclers suddenly find other details more interesting, and so the presence of women in taverns is softened, sanitized, or quietly pushed aside. But inside this room, there is nothing subtle about it. Women occupy many roles here, and none of them are simple. Some carry trays, moving carefully between tables, memorizing faces and moods with professional precision. Serving ale is not just physical labor, it is social navigation. Knowing who can be joked with, who should be avoided, who might grab a wrist if given the chance. Every step is calculated, every smile measured. Others sit behind the bar itself. A female tavern keeper is rare, but not unheard of. When she exists, she commands a particular kind of authority. Not loud, not aggressive, but absolute. She knows the room better than anyone. She knows who owes money, who drinks too much, who becomes dangerous after the fourth mug. Her word carries weight because it is backed by experience and by allies who trust her judgment. Men who challenge her authority rarely do so twice. This is not empowerment in the modern sense. It is survival sharpened into competence. Power earned not through permission but through necessity. A woman who runs a tavern has outlasted competition, suspicion, and no small amount of resentment. She has learned when to intervene and when to let the room handle its own problems. And the room respects her for it, even if it never says so. Then there are the women who are neither staff nor owners. They sit among the patrons, sometimes alone, sometimes accompanied. Their presence is read instantly, whether they want it to be or not. In a medieval tavern, a woman's appearance is always interpreted. Never neutral. Clothing, posture, eye contact, all become signals, decoded according to rules she did not write. Some women are here because they have nowhere else to be. Some because they are waiting. Some because this is where their work happens. Prostitution in the medieval tavern is not advertised. There are no signs, no announcements, no clear boundaries. It exists in glances held too long, in conversations that drift away from the table, in hands brushing coins discreetly. Transactions are quiet, efficient, designed to avoid attention. This is not romance. There are no illusions of passion, no candlelit fantasies. This is commerce shaped by desperation and routine. The exchange is understood by both sides. One offers money, safety, or food. The other offers companionship, intimacy, or simply the illusion of being wanted. Both know the terms. Neither expects poetry. What is striking is how normalized it all is. No one gasps. No one pretends not to notice. The tavern does not judge. It accommodates. This is what it has always done. It absorbs human need and finds a way to make space for it. For the women involved, the risks are constant. Violence, disease, pregnancy, social ruin. There is no safety net, no legal protection worth relying on. Reputation is fragile, and once lost, it cannot be recovered. A woman known for selling her body cannot simply stop and expect the world to forget. And yet some choose this path anyway. Choice in this context is complicated. When alternatives are hunger, homelessness, or worse, the tavern offers a grim kind of stability. Regular clients, familiar faces, a place where transactions follow rules, however harsh. It is not freedom, but it is structure. The sadness of it lingers in the air. Not dramatic sadness, not the kind that demands tears, but a quiet, heavy awareness that this is how things are and how they will remain. No one at the table expects a happy ending. Expectations are lowered early here. You notice how conversations change when women pass nearby. Voices drop, jokes shift tone. Some men become performative, louder, cruder. Others grow strangely polite, as if politeness itself might purchase absolution. A few avert their eyes entirely, uncomfortable with desires they have no intention of examining. The women notice all of it. They have learned to read rooms faster than anyone else, to sense danger before it speaks, to exit conversations that might turn violent, to remember who paid fairly and who did not. Memory is protection. Forgetting is costly. What history rarely records is how much emotional labor this requires. The constant calculation, the suppression of fear, the performance of indifference, the careful balance between being seen and not seen too much. There is no glamour here, no secret thrill, only repetition. And yet, within this harsh reality, there are moments of quiet solidarity. Women warning each other about certain patrons, sharing food when someone has gone without, standing close during moments of tension. These acts are small, almost invisible, but they matter. They are how people survive systems not designed to care about them. As the night wears on, fatigue softens everything. Movements slow, voices drop. Some women leave with clients. Others remain counting coins, weighing whether tonight was worth it. The tavern does not follow them. It does not offer commentary. It simply continues. This is perhaps the most unsettling part. The tavern is not cruel. It is indifferent. It does not create these conditions. It reflects them. It shows society exactly as it is, without decoration or apology. Women exist here because the world outside has left them few alternatives. Their stories are not written because they complicate narratives people prefer to keep simple. You sit quietly, aware now of how much you were not meant to notice, how many lives intersect here without acknowledgement, how many compromises fill the space between one mug and the next. This part of the tavern will never be romanticized properly. It resists it. The truth is too heavy, too grounded, too human. There are no heroes here, only people doing what they must. The night moves on, the candles burn lower, and the women, like everyone else in this room, remain part of a system that does not ask for consent, only participation. The tavern accepts them all the same. When the night grows late, and those who do not want to go home, there comes a point in the night when the tavern changes its meaning again. It is subtle, easy to miss if you are not paying attention. But you feel it in the slowing rhythm of the room, in the way laughter loses its edge and arguments lose their energy. The fire burns lower now, no longer roaring, just glowing, casting longer shadows that stretch across the floor like tired limbs. Midnight has passed. Not everyone knows the hour, but everyone senses it. Some people have already left. The farmers went first. They always do. Tomorrow does not care how late they drank tonight. Their bodies know this, even if their mouths protest. They gather their cloaks, nod politely or not at all, and disappear into the dark, carrying the tavern's warmth with them for as long as it lasts. A few merchants follow. They drink carefully, leave early, and keep their lives compartmentalized. The tavern is a stop for them, not a destination. Those who remain after midnight are different. They sit heavier in their benches. They refill mugs more slowly, or not at all. Some stare into the fire as if waiting for it to speak. Others lean close to the table, heads resting in their hands, the night finally catching up with them. These are the ones with nowhere urgent to be. Some are simply drunk, deeply, thoroughly drunk, the kind of drunk that dulls pain and sharpens memory at the same time. They sway when they stand, miss when they reach for their mugs, laugh at things that happened hours ago. Their homes are waiting, yes, but home can wait a little longer. Home will still be there in the morning, and the night feels safer than the quiet that comes with sleep. Others are not drunk enough. They drink steadily, methodically, not to celebrate or forget, but to maintain a fragile balance. The alcohol keeps something at bay: fear, grief, thought. You can see it in their eyes clear even through the haze. When the mug empties, something threatens to return, so the mug must be refilled. These are the desperate ones. Then there are those who are running, not always from something specific. Sometimes from a place, sometimes from a person, sometimes from a version of themselves they no longer recognize. The tavern does not ask. It rarely asks questions of anyone who pays and keeps their head down. For fugitives, failed lovers, disgraced soldiers, and people who made one mistake too many, this room offers anonymity. Here, you are not your past. You are just another body in the dark. The tavern becomes quieter now, but not silent. Silence would be unbearable. Instead, it hums softly. Chairs scrape occasionally. Someone coughs. Someone mutters to themselves without realizing it. The soundscape thins, leaving more space between noises, more room for thoughts to wander where they are not wanted. This is when the tavern feels most like a refuge. Not a pleasant one, not a safe one, but a necessary one. For some, this is the last place that does not ask for explanations. No one here demands that you account for your failures. No one expects improvement. As long as you behave and pay, you are allowed to exist. That permission matters more than it should. You notice how people who remain late avoid eye contact more deliberately now. Earlier, glances were assessments, challenges, negotiations. Now they are avoided out of mutual respect. Everyone understands that whatever brought the others here this late is not something to pry into. Late-night tavern etiquette is simple. Mind your business. Keep your voice down. Let the night do its work. A man at a nearby table has stopped drinking entirely. His mug sits untouched. He stares past it, eyes unfocused. He is not asleep. He is remembering something he cannot escape by closing his eyes. The tavern gives him space. No one interrupts. Someone refills his mug anyway, just in case. In a corner, a woman rests her head against the wall, eyes half closed. She has not left with anyone tonight. Coins sit in her palm, counted and recounted. Enough to eat tomorrow, not enough to stop. She exhales slowly, steadying herself, preparing for the walk back to wherever she sleeps. The fire pops softly. A log shifts. Sparks rise and vanish. Time stretches here, elastic and forgiving. There is no rush. The world outside is dark, cold, and full of consequences. Inside, consequences are delayed. Not erased, just postponed. This is why people stay. The tavern at this hour feels less like a business and more like a shelter. The staff move quietly now, less watchful, more tired. The tavern keeper watches the room with an expression that mixes patience and calculation. Soon they will close. Not yet. Closing too early would send people back into a night they are not ready to face. So the tavern waits. You realize something uncomfortable as you sit there. For many of these people, this place is the closest thing they have to a home. Not a loving one, not a stable one, but a familiar one. The walls are known, the sounds are predictable, the danger is understood. Outside, anything could happen. Inside, at least the rules are clear. The sadness of it settles in slowly, not overwhelming but persistent. These are not villains or heroes, just people caught between what they have lost and what they cannot yet face. The tavern holds them in that space, neither pushing them forward nor letting them fall back. Someone finally stands, unsteady but determined. A cloak is pulled tight. A final look around the room, not searching for anything, just acknowledging its existence. The door opens, letting in a rush of cold air and rain. For a moment, the night outside feels enormous. Then the door closes again, and the tavern shrinks back to its usual size. One by one, people leave, or don't. The room thins, but it never empties completely. There are always a few who linger until the very end. The ones for whom leaving is harder than staying. The ones who dread the silence of wherever they sleep, more than the noise of this place. You understand them now. Not everyone has somewhere they want to return to. Not everyone is eager to face the next day. For some, the tavern is not an escape. It is a pause. A narrow strip of time where nothing is demanded and nothing is decided. Eventually, the fire will be extinguished. The lamps will be dimmed. The tavern keeper will speak softly but firmly. It is time, but not yet. For now, the night holds, the tavern breathes, and the people who remain cling to this last soft pocket of warmth, knowing that when they step outside, whatever they have been avoiding will still be there. The tavern does not judge them for that. It understands. After all, not everyone has a place they want to go home to. Stepping back out and realizing you never really left. Eventually, the tavern closes. It always does. Even the most patient keeper of warmth and noise cannot hold back the morning forever. The fire is reduced to embers, lamps are dimmed until they give more shadow than light, and the remaining patrons are nudged gently but firmly toward the door. Not pushed, not scolded. Just reminded that time, inconvenient as it is, continues to move. You stand, joints stiff, head heavy, senses dulled and sharpened at the same time. The room looks smaller now, stripped of its crowd and much of its illusion. Empty benches sit where entire lives unfolded just hours ago. The tavern exhales one last time, tired but intact. The door opens. Cold air rushes in, sharp and honest. Rain still falls, or perhaps it has just stopped, leaving the street slick and reflective. The sounds of the tavern die quickly behind you as the door closes, replaced by the quiet of a medieval night. Not peaceful, just quieter. You step outside. For a moment, you expect something to feel different, cleaner, safer, more real. But the truth is unsettling in its simplicity. Nothing has changed. The same darkness waits here, the same uncertainty, the same narrow streets leading back to lives that will demand effort again in the morning. The tavern did not remove you from reality. It only concentrated it. As you walk away, the warmth fades quickly. The smell of smoke and people clings to your clothes, your hair, your memory. You realize that the tavern has followed you out, quietly, invisibly, settling into you the way it settles into everyone who spends enough time inside. And this is where the comparison becomes unavoidable. We like to believe that medieval taverns are relics, crude ancestors to modern bars and pubs, places we have evolved past. We imagine ourselves cleaner, safer, more enlightened. We drink for fun now, we tell ourselves, for taste, for leisure. But look closer. A modern bar on a late night is not so different. People gather to dull the edges of the day, to talk too much, to say things they would never admit in daylight. Rumors still spread. Fights still break out. Loneliness still finds its way to the counter, orders another drink, and waits. The furniture has improved. The lighting is better controlled. The floors are cleaner. But the reasons people are there remain stubbornly familiar. We still drink because water is not always enough. We still gather because being alone is harder than we admit. We still tell stories that stretch the truth. Still listen because believing feels better than silence. We still look for warmth, even if we pretend it's about atmosphere. The medieval tavern was honest about its purpose. Ours prefer euphemisms. Back then, survival was visible. Hunger was immediate. Violence was close enough to feel. Today, those things are abstracted, hidden behind systems and screens. But they have not disappeared. They have only changed shape. People are still tired, still afraid, still hopeful in quiet, fragile ways. We still seek places that let us exist, without explanation for a few hours. Places where no one asks too many questions as long as we behave. The tavern, in all its filth and noise, understood something fundamental about human nature. We need communal spaces that accept us at our worst, not just our best. Spaces where imperfection is expected, where rules are flexible, where stories matter, even when they aren't true. History does not repeat itself neatly. It echoes. As you walk farther from the tavern, its sounds fully gone now, you notice how the night feels larger, less contained, more demanding. The tavern was a pocket of controlled chaos. Outside chaos has no walls. You think back to the people you saw inside, the farmers, the soldiers, the women counting coins, the drunks staring into nothing, the storytellers shaping reality with words. They feel distant already, like characters in a story you once heard, but they are not gone. They exist wherever people gather to drink and talk and forget. They exist in every crowded bar at closing time, in every late-night conversation that feels too honest to survive the morning, in every place where laughter is a little too loud and silence is carefully avoided. The unsettling part is not how different they were. It's how familiar. We like to imagine progress as a clean break from the past, as if we stepped out of those taverns centuries ago and never looked back. But the truth is quieter and far less flattering. We brought the tavern with us, we refined it, sanitized it, gave it better lighting and fewer visible dangers, but the core remains. The need to belong, the need to escape, the need to be seen without being examined too closely. Standing there in the cold, you realize that the medieval tavern was never really about beer or food or shelter. It was about pause, about creating a space where time softened and life loosened its grip just enough to be bearable. That need has not gone away. You pull your cloak tighter, or imagine doing so, and continue down the street. Somewhere ahead is wherever you are supposed to be. Somewhere behind you the tavern settles into sleep, ready to wake again and repeat the cycle for the next set of lives that wander through its door. You tell yourself you are different from them, more aware, more comfortable, more in control. But be honest, you still seek the same things, just with cleaner floors and better excuses. You still gather in warm rooms to push back the dark. You still drink to soften reality. You still tell stories that make life feel manageable. You think you are different, but really you're just less muddy, and the tavern knows it.